Some of you got emails during the break about some of your replets that aren't done. Now, I just had a really good question about this. What if you do get it done like way late and I've given you a 0 in Canvas? Am I going to ever know that you got that replit done? No, I won't. Not if you don't submit something in Canvas to tell me that you got it done. I've got, I do not have like a continuous feed of replit info telling me that you got done with something. You have to submit in Canvas and you have to tell me, I, so-and-so, finished this replit late and would like for you to reevaluate it. Tell me who's submitting it, because remember, it's a group submission for these older ones, and I can't tell which person in the group submitted it if you don't tell me. So give me a break. I'm not a computer. I don't know that you finished the replit unless you submit something in Canvas to let me know. Now, if I look in Canvas, I see a whole bunch of people in this class that have not finished the methods replit. So that's what we're going to start on right now together. If you finished it, you are free to step away or work on things that are due this week, or help some of the people around you if they seem like they're struggling, because I definitely want to go through them as quickly as we can so that we can get these things done. Now, each one of these replits gives you guys valuable experience. If you don't have it done, come with me and let's get it done. Now, this first one, prompt for input, I would say, I don't want to do that, silly replit. I would say that most everybody has this one already. This one actually supplies the code to you. It says, because we're still pretty early on, you guys are just doing really advanced things. But it says, add the code to the supplied C# source code. This code should go under the method header for the get user data. So here in line 9. So the best way to get experience here would be to type all this in. Can I copy it and then paste it? Yes. This is lesson 4, the methods. Can everybody find that one? I should have waited. Thank you. Lesson 4, methods. So even if you were close to having it all done, come with us if you like, because it'll be such good review. And you guys never feel like you're doing something over again. Even if you're writing the same code you wrote like 4 weeks ago, try to do it better. Try to see if you can make it more efficient. Try to see if you can use variables where you didn't use variables last time. Just challenge yourself, because there's always so much to learn. Okay, so all of these lines of code that I copied are just console.write statements and console read line statements. I'll look at them here real fast. My get user data method is now going to prompt for their name and read it, and prompt for their age and read it. It's going to mess with the foreground color of the console. I don't know if that'll work on replit. And then it's going to print out the information about the user that they entered and set the color back to the color that was originally saved. Now, I just copied that code. If you notice, the replits, the newer ones do, if I have it formatted properly, they do have a little copy thingy icon that pops up that you can copy the code. So I'm going to run this. And here's my prompt. Please enter your name. I'm feeling like 12 today, 12. Okay, so the code works. Now in this one, notice that for this very first one, you just took supplied code and pasted it under the method header, just to get used to keeping the code within those curly braces. Remember, if you've had trouble with curly braces, that's really common. It happens a lot. So that's why these replits are set up that way, just to kind of make sure you're getting used to them. Did it mess with you, Chloe?
The test is being run.
Is it? Let me try running it. I hadn't run it. Let's run our tests.
Calc's right lines.
Oh, it says that it expected that please enter your name and age to be on separate lines. So she's got it. Like Chloe said, I'll just make these right line statements. And then see if that helps me to pass that test. So I've got one little problem. Oh, do you see it? The expected output has a typo. It wants a lowercase o. I'll meet it. Basic I, lowercase o. Silly thing. And then it finally passed. Now, when you see a typo like that, remember, it's just the same as if you make a typo in a variable name. You have to continue making that typo throughout all of your code unless you want to change it. So with these ones, once you guys have already started them, it's hard for me to correct small, silly little things like that, even though it's annoying to you guys, and of course I would like to correct it. But that one looks good. I passed it now, so I'm going to submit it. Oh, wow, they even have the message fixed where it doesn't complain to you that you haven't passed the test. If you passed the test, I think it's working. Yay! All right, so here's one that's not. This should say that you've submitted it. I will post that to the forum that that's still a problem. Yeah, it would be helpful for you guys, I'm sure. Okay, let's format this numeric output here. Okay, so in this one, again, the format numerical data method header is already here in the code. The code is supplied, and we want to copy it and paste it into our method. And then I'm going to try to indent it all properly. Now this one is to help you learn about those formatting characters that we've seen a lot of. And we know that right now here they are doing those numbered parameters instead of putting the variable name here. And that's because they don't even have any variables included in this. They're just passing in a number to this right line. So here we can see all of the different formatting, or several of them. I'm going to run this. And we see our currency format first. The D9 format, if you notice, it made the number 9 digits long, padded the beginning with zeros to make it 9 digits long. F3 format made it have 3 decimal places. The N for number format put commas and 2 decimal places like currency, just no $sign. Our scientific notations and weird hex format. All right, so those are just some good examples for you of different output formatting for numbers. So this is some really good code to remember that it's out here. If you have a code library where you're keeping sample code, you know, this is a really good method because it just does a lot of different numeric formatting. Perfect, that one's passed. Let's go back and do the next one. Everybody okay there? Pass. Let's build the car price app. No errors in that one for you. Okay, so now we're going to start on our own. And we have a lot of comments in this one because in this one, when we start making methods, you guys have done a really good job with creating them. It can sometimes be confusing. So here we're going to be creating the car price value app. And it says UML for the app can be found in the assets folder. So let's see, here's my UML. And with Replit, you can download that image. So if you can't see it well enough, because it is kind of shrunk down, you can download it. Should be able to zoom in a little bit on it too, but not too much. So in our UML, we see that our name of our main class is main class, and that might be program if Replit has changed it. You know how they keep changing the name they want for that class name. And we have a string variable that is car type, a decimal variable that is the price, and an integer value that is the car rating. Then we have several behaviors or methods that we want to create for our main class. We're going to have a display instructions method, an input, another input for different numbering types. We're going to ask for the rating. We're going to have a calc value method and a print car method. So all of these different methods we're going to create to get this thing fully implemented. I'm going to close out of the UML. Now, another thing that's in the assets is the hierarchy chart. It's a little clunkety, but remember, a hierarchy chart just says this method, my main method, calls all of these other methods. Yeah, just calls them. All right, so now I want to go back to my main CS file. I checked out those beautiful illustrations, and it says that this app will use global variables. Remember, our global class level variables are declared under the class statement, but outside of methods. So let's add declarations for our 3 required variables to our class. And here in our main class, there's some comments that say declare them here. So I will start there. You can leave the comments or you can type over them. The first thing that we have is a string that is the type of the car. And if I look down a little bit, I see the variable names. So I'm just going to use those same variable names. Those are also the ones that are in our UML diagram. So we've been told what those variable names should be. My car type, I'm going to have a decimal value of price and an integer for rating. And again, I see those variable names down here in the main method when we're printing them out. Okay, so I've got my 3 variables declared, but I need to give them initial values. So they want the car type to be Kia and the price to be 15,000 and the rating to be an 8. So cool. Now I should be able to run it. That's all that I need to do in this Replit is add my class level variables. The output statements are already here for me. So I'm going to run it. Oh, it's mad at me.
To be static on the first declaration of the variables.
All of our variables.
Yeah.
Let's make them all static. Now that you've seen working with a class, you know that if we had these in an actual class instead of being in our main, we wouldn't have to make them static. Beautiful. So once we add that static in, everybody's happy. Our output looks like, I think, what it wanted. So I'll run the test and make sure. Passed. Yay, I'm submitted. All right, so we've got our variables set up. So the next thing that we need to do is our display instructions method. Notice again, this one picks up where that last one left off. So this is a Replit where you usually can look ahead and see how to complete the one that you're stuck on, because the next one usually shows you how to complete it. All right, so for this one, we want to add the display instructions method. It says review the supplied code in the existing main. We will add the display instructions method and then call the method from our main method. So I need to declare my new method, and it says to do this below line 24. Line 24 has that closing curly brace for my main method. So right under that, I'm going to put in this new method, private static void display instructions. And then remember, when we're working with methods, private means that no one can use it unless they're in my class. Static means there's only one. It's only loaded in memory one time. It does not have instances. Void means it's not going to return any values. And finally, display instructions is the name of the method. So now the method body, we want the code in the method to output the following information to the console. Welcome to the Calc Value app, and then here's our messages. So I'm going to put that here in my display instructions method. The first write line I want is this one. I'm going to copy it. Now, when I copied, I got all 3 lines. So I'm going to have to fix that. I'm going to output that first line in my first write line statement. And then I need a blank write line. We have an empty line. Finally, I'll do the write line on this long message. You will be asked for the car type, price, and rating. I'll close that. Close that string because the next thing needs to be on its own line, it looks like. So I'll do write line separately for it. A comparable value will be generated, and then end that. So now I've taken the output that they want. I copied and pasted it from the description so that hopefully there was no chance I wouldn't match the test run. So now I can run my test. I got something wrong. Let me check. Oh, I didn't add in my call to my display instructions. It's just totally missing, isn't it? So let's fix that. Now, to add this call to our main, we need to put it after this write line statement for the rating. So we just want to call display instructions. Again, it's a method, so we have to have the opening close parentheses.
Wait, I thought the instructions went above the.
Do they go above that stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, move them up there. Now, you can run it again, or you can just run the tests again, whichever you prefer. And it says it passed. Now, you can tell there's a little bit of spacing output. Whenever I set up these test cases, replit kind of has a bunch of different options they kept adding to try to get past that garbage problem. So hopefully I've got it set to where it's flexible like this. Since it's got the desired output, it says it matches. So that's nice. Let's submit it. Okay, so I am to this one, the input methods 2-0-3. in this one, it's like I don't have any instructions. Uh-oh, they showed up finally. Okay, so we're ready to add methods to prompt for our input values. Right now, our variables are assigned initial values. We can leave that code in place, but now we're going to overwrite those values with the input from our users. So the first thing we want to do is add a method to input the car type. And remember, our car type is a string, so we're going to have a return value from our input type that is a string. So it says, let's put this after line 26. What you got? Question? Do you have a question, Anna, or just stretch it? Okay, let's add in our method header, private static, and this is going to return a string, and we're going to be asking the user to input our type.
Last one, I'm having an issue on something that
Oh, okay, show it to us. Let's see if we can fix.
So I'm getting this error that says on line 19, which did not on line 19.
Uh-huh.
It's saying that right line is an unexpected symbol.
So did you add anything before that line?
The semicolon on line 18.
That's probably one.
Good job, good eyes. Now what? Display instructions does not exist. So do those names match? Yep. Right line. It was typing fast, speedy typing. Looks good. See if it passes your test. Yay, it did. It passed. Beautiful. Okay. That fast typing will get you. All right, so I put my method header in down here. It's private, static, and I'm going to return a string. Our method is called input type. And in the method body, we just need these 2 lines of code. Right. And what type of car is being rated? With a question mark and a space. And then we're going to return to our caller whatever we read from the user's input. Now we need to add our call to the method. Our instructions for our last one, we're missing that. It says that we want to add it right after we display the instructions. We want to set our car type variable equal to whatever the user enters in our input type method. So that looks good, but we're not done with this one. We have 3 different things we need to input. So inputting a string is super easy. We've got our input method for that. Now let's add our input method for our price. I'm going to put this method below our input type, private, static, decimal, input, price. And then I've got some code here. Let's type it in because I want you to really become familiar with this code. I'm going to create a temp variable to hold the value. And then I'm going to write out the prompt. What is the price of, and I'm going to use a parameter to output the type of car that they entered, car type. So if they type Volkswagen, my prompt here for the price is going to say, what is the price of Volkswagen? Now I notice that I'm not just reading that directly in. We're doing a while loop. And in our while loop, the first thing we have is a not. So whatever we're doing here, we're going to be reversing. So what are we doing? We're saying, using the decimal type, try to parse whatever you read in from that console line. If it parses as a decimal, put the output in my temp variable. If it doesn't pass, my temp variable will be 0. So this try.parse statement will read whatever they type in. If it's a decimal, it'll put it in the temp variable. We're saying if it's not a decimal, by putting that not in front of it, then we want to output a message. We're going to write out \n invalid value. What is the price of our car type again? I have to make this the same format if I want it to output the same. Now, within our while loop, we're just going to keep executing that while loop as long as they type invalid data. When they finally type something that's correct, our try parse will pass, and then we'll drop out of our while loop. When we drop out of our while loop, we want to return the value of that temp variable that should hold the valid decimal. Let's test it. We don't just have to add the code. We can use replit to test. Before I test, though, I need to put in a call to this method so that I can test it. And in the instructions, it says to put that call right after we call our input type. So go back up to your main method. We've added our display instructions method. We've added our input type. Now we're going to add our input price. And now I can test it. When I test, I want to try using some invalid data on this input price. Oops, it's mad at me. Line 33. Unexpected symbol return. Oh, I'm missing a semicolon in the line before. We want to make sure you guys are really familiar with that error. And now I've got my message. What type of car is being rated? Oh, it's my Volkswagen. What is the price of Volkswagen? Gibberish. Oh, invalid value. What is the price? Now, as long as you type invalid data, you should just keep getting prompted. When you finally type in a valid number, that while loop will quit executing because it now has a valid number to use. Everybody's work okay? See how our while loop is taking care of that for us? This input price is a code snippet that you should have in your code snippet library. This should be something so that if, say our project for the Unit 2 exam, what if that project requires you to input a valid decimal? Well, here's the code snippet. You need to do that right here without you having to reinvent it again. So make sure you save that because it's something that will be really handy. Okay, I'm going to go back to my instructions then because I know I have one more. I need to add the input rating. And my rating is an integer, so it's going to be a little different. Now, notice that there's no help here for this one. It says the rating is an integer field. Use the input price and input type methods as examples. Let's create that input rating method. Okay, I'm going to put it right under my input price. And my header is going to be the same, private static, except I'm returning an integer. And input rating. Now in my input rating, I'm going to set up an integer to hold that value temporarily. And then I'm going to write out a prompt, \n, what is the rating of the car, question mark space, and after my string, the variable that I want to use to replace that parameter will be rating. Now I'm going to go into a while loop, just like before, but this time, instead of saying decimal.tryparse, I'm going to do int.tryparse, because this is an integer. I still want to read whatever the user typed on the console line to see if it's an integer, and if it is, I want to output it to my temp variable. Now within my while loop, if it is not a valid integer, I'm going to rewrite out that prompt again, just like last time. Invalid value. What is the price of parameter 0, question mark space, and my car type. Now, when they finally enter something valid, we're going to drop out of our while loop and return our temp variable. So again, really good code, really good sample code for validating input is an integer. That's why this replit is just so important for you to get done, because it does have some really good samples that can save you a lot of time throughout the semester, and even C# too if you want to take it. So now I need to put in my call in my main method to activate my input rating method. So I've got my instructions, my car type, and my price. My rating is now going to be set by my input rating method. And if everything looks good, we can test it. This is one of the biggest ones in this replit, isn't it? Because we're really creating all these different methods and learning how to do these error traps for non-numeric data, all together. So it's an important one. Let's run it. To test it, I'll say it's my Volkswagen. My Volkswagen is 15,000. Oops, that doesn't look right. What is the rating of, I don't know how I ended up with car temp. Oh, I did it. I used rating here as my variable, and it should be car type. So if I type something wrong, oops, get back over on my console and type something invalid, I should get the right message because my invalid value message was correct. What is the price of the Volkswagen? If I keep entering garbage, it keeps asking me. When I finally enter the correct rating, an integer, it will take it. Everybody okay? This one was a big one, and we should be able to pass our test now. Let's check. Ah, I passed. Did you guys pass? Everybody good? That one is more than a lot of our replits, but it's kind of like a combined one of all this really important input code. I'm going to submit it. Hopefully you can find that easy enough again when you need that code. Now the last couple are Calc Value method. Notice that these ones are different because they're using the .NET version of replit. Notice they have two. The one that has a C# logo is using the mono compiler or a different way to compile C#. These newer ones are using .NET, so let's see if we have any trouble with it. The Calc Value method. This one should be real quick. Okay, again, this one has all of the code from our previous one. So as a starting point, again, it has the kind of the answer for the previous. So now we want to add a calc value method, and we want to call it from our main method. So in our instructions, they say, here is the method you need to add. It says that it should go at the very end before the final closing curly brace for our class. So I'll put it way down here. It's going to be a private, static, void. Now, in the code, it says that I want to create this decimal named value, and I'm going to set it equal to this weird made-up calculation. We're going to take our rating and divide it by 100 to make it into like a percentage. And then use that times our price. And we're just kind of calculating something weird, random, to use as a calculation, just so that we can calculate something. And then we're returning that value. Now I see right away there's a problem here, but as a new programmer, you may not see it yet.
Void.
It's a void, yep. And here we have this decimal value. So let's leave this error so that we can see the error message we get, but we definitely have a problem there. So now let's add our call to the end of our main method. In our main, after our rating of the car, can add a right line. Calculated value of the car is, and then our parameter 0, we want formatted is currency. No space or anything. And then I want to replace that parameter with the return from our calc value method. So call the method, whatever it returns is what I want to print there. Okay, so I'm expecting that error because I have an inconsistent header. Let's run it and see. So it gave us a whole bunch of messages. I'm going to go all the way to the end one, and it says, since main class calc value returns void, a return keyword must not be followed by an object. So just like we thought, it's mad about that. I've got to change that void to decimal. So what?
This is the one that I got stuck on because the class program and class main method.
Oh, and the main, and it's just so wacky. So I'm going to try running it now. And this is what Chloe's talking about. So whenever we run into this error, it's because of the different versions of replit. And when we're working with these .NET versions, our CIS150 file, which we've worked with Visual Studio Code, but if we look at our project file, it specifies the name of our startup class. It says program. Well, I have two choices. I can change this to use main class, since that's what my class name is. Or I could change my .cs file to say program instead. I always tell you guys when you send me a message to change your class name to program. So I'm going to try the other way here while we're all together and change my project file to say we'll use main class. So let's run and see if it will do that for us. Yep, it's all happy with that. So that's just an inconsistency within replit, and it's taken a while for everybody to figure out what to do there. I hope that that doesn't cause you any trouble anymore, that you know how to handle that situation. Check your project file and make them be the same. All right, so I'm going to say my Volkswagen is being rated. It's 1,500, 1,000, whatever. And I'll give it an 8. Okay, so that weird calculated value thing that we have formula came back with an answer, so that's good. I'm going to test it. Ah, no test found. So I guess that one passed. Now there's some random ones. First, we need to display our output from our car price calculation. If you notice here, these methods were kind of like building a class before we started our class stuff, aren't we? So here we need to add our display output method. I'm going to go to the bottom and create it right before my end of my main class. Private, static, void, display, output. Now we don't have to pass any parameters to our method because we're using our global variables. And it says that we need all of the right line commands from the main method. Cut the lines from the main and paste them into this new method. Okay, so I'm going to go up to my main, try to do this without making a mess. And I want all of these right lines. And I'm going to cut them and paste them in my new method. Because remember, a method performs a task, a logical task, and all of our output here is a logical task, outputting all of that information. Okay, so now I need to change, whoops, I got a typo there. I need to change my main method to call this one. So where I cut all that code from, I'll call display output. And we shouldn't see any difference from our last one. So let's see, does this one have a test? Nope. Let's run it, make sure it's good, since it doesn't have a test. Oop, I do have a problem. I've got that same main class issue. Go back to my files. And this time I'll just change this to be program. Either one is fine. I like changing our project file to use main class since this one was kind of a series. We could copy and paste the code from one to the next. Kind of nice to. What type of care is being ranked? Volkswagen. My price and my rating. And there's all my output. So looks good. I'm going to submit it. It is running. Now, the next one, passing data by value. Here we're going to start adding parameters to our methods. This is a really small example, nice for us, just simple. And it says that we want to create the find max method using the following method header. Oh, thank goodness, we want to replace %name1 with a valid variable name, and we want to replace name2 with a valid variable name. So let me put this in. first thing I want to do is put it after my main. My new method goes here. It's got that message down there. And this is going to be public static int find max. And then it's going to have two integers. We'll call them I1 and I2. Now, these are pass by value. It says, what is the expected output? You should be able to tell by looking at the code. Here in my code, I see that I should return whichever is the larger of the two integers that are passed to me. So I need to add code to make that happen. The code isn't supplied to me, so I'm going to have to do some decision making here. If I1 is greater than I2, I want to return I1. If I1 is less than I2, I want to return I2. Otherwise, they're equal and it really wouldn't matter, huh? So we'll just return I1 because they must be the same. Now that should work. It should give me whichever of those two integers is the largest. So we should see our max value should be 200. Let's run it, make sure it works properly. Yep, looks like we got our logic in there good. See if there's any tests to run. Yep. Oh, and it passed. So awesome. Let's submit it. Now, the next two, we're talking about more passing data in as parameters, and then we have a couple of recursion examples. So we'll continue and finish these up on Wednesday and start in on the class one. For you at home today, this week,